Hey, everybody. This episode of Our Kids Play Hockey is brought to you by our title sponsor, NHL Sense Arena. Look, we all want our kids to succeed in hockey, but let's face it, finding training that's both effective and enjoyable can be a real challenge, and not to mention expensive and a total drain on time, especially if you have to drive to the rink, pay a private instructor. There's so many reasons that money gets spent on this game. But that's where NHL Sense Arena steps in. It's a virtual reality training game that brings the rink into your home that takes off-ice training to a new reality. It's designed to improve hockey sense and IQ, something that's lacking majorly in the game today for both players and goalies. And you get unlimited access to over 100 drills and training plans from top coaches and players that can be played anytime, anywhere, with drills approved by USA Hockey player and goalie development directors. Look, improving mental hockey skills at home has really never been more fun, and any hockey player that uses this is going to have a blast. All right. I've used this before on my own, and it feels like you're so immersed in an arena, you sometimes forget you have a headset on. And again, it's not being on the ice, but it allows you to work on some of these skill sets like scanning, as I said before, hockey IQ, looking around the rink, making the right plays, that getting those repetitions in now as a hockey player are super important for your development. So NHL Sense Arena is giving all the listeners an exclusive offer for $50 off an annual plan when you use our code Hockey Never Stops at checkout. Again, that's Hockey Never Stops. All you got to do is go to hockey.sensearena.com. Again, that's hockey.sensearena.com. Use the code Hockey Never Stops, and you'll save $50 on your annual plan of NHL Sense Arena. Make sure to check that out and enjoy this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. What would you do if you had 4 kids playing the game? And what would you do if multiple kids were goalies within that family? Our guest today is living that life while also being a very successful entrepreneur. This is, I'm not gonna lie, it's one of my favorite episodes I've ever done. It literally embodies the Our Kids Play Hockey title. So you're going to enjoy this one. We have Kim Wright on today. Must listen for all of us today. Good episode. Also, we're into the season now. If you're looking for some professional team building, team bonding, talks with your team, we're offering special deals right now over at game7group.com that if you come over there and let us know, or you can email us at lee@game7group.com. If you're interested in some team building for the year, we're giving discounts to anybody who listens to this podcast. Just let us know that you're interested, and we'll go over some plans with you about the same things that we do with pro teams and college teams and junior teams, we do with mite teams and squirt teams and peewee teams. And it's all about bringing that group together. Whether you're the players or a coach who just wants to learn more, check us out again, game7group.com for all of your team performance, team building, team bonding needs. But without further ado, let's get into the episode today about having 4 kids playing hockey, 2 of them goalie, with our guest, Kim Wright. Enjoy the episode, everybody. Hello, hockey friends and families around the world, and welcome to another edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. I'm Lee Elias with Mike Benelli, and we've got a very special guest today, one whose hockey life balance will both shock you and equally impress you. Kim Wright joins us today. She is the mother of 4 youth hockey players, Aiden, who is 14 and is a AAA goalie, the twins, Brady, who is 12 and a goalie, and Jack, who is also 12, obviously, and a defenseman, both play on a AA team, and Charlie, who is 7 years old and is a mite. Now, for this audience, that bio would be enough to wow you, but Kim takes this to the next level. Check this out. In addition to being a full-time hockey mom, Kim is the owner and operator of 5 Nothing Bundt Cake locations, while also serving as the chairperson and Northeast rep for the organization's Brand Advisory Council. She's also a staple in her local community, serving as a board member for her local Chamber of Commerce and a chair for her local YMCA advisory board. Not to mention, Kim can always be seen around town or on the nightly news at events sharing the joy of bundt cakes. She also doesn't just do these jobs, she's also recognized for these jobs. And I'm talking just recently, as in the past 3 years, Kim was awarded or recognized as the, check this out, 2023 Mainline Chamber of Commerce Woman-Owned Business of the Year, 2023 Delaware County Chamber of Commerce Small Business Person of the Year, 2023 Mainline Today Power Women Honoree, from 2019 to 2023 Mainline Parent Community Love Award winner, and 2020, a wonderful year, Nothing Bundt Cakes Love That's Living Our Values Every Day Award winner. Those are just the recent awards. Kim was also the feature of our own Christy Casciano Burns Hockey Mom article in this month's USA Hockey magazine. People, I'm going to be honest with you. There's more to this bio than I read but we don't have 2.5 hours to go through all of them, and we need to get in the show. I will just finish with this. Above all of the accomplishments that I've said, parent being the number one, Kim is a thoughtful and wonderful person and parent with a genuine nature to help others. It's so obvious when you meet her that she cares about you and cares about what you're saying. It's a rarity nowadays. Kim, welcome to Our Kids Play Hockey.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here and see you and Mike face to face. Lee, I'm excited that this past year, you and I have been able to have more FaceTime since our mites play together, which has been awesome.
Yeah, just for the audience so you understand, Kim and I are in the same area. And for the first year of my hockey journey, when my son was younger, we live busy lives, Kim, and I was like, you guys got to meet each other. It's amazing you haven't run into each other. I think it took about a year before we actually met. And then we didn't stop seeing each other every day afterwards. But, I'm always in awe of you and everything that you've accomplished. I've said it many times that, look, you might be shorter than me, but I look up to you. Same thing I say to my wife, right? And all of the stuff that you do. So, Kim, I thought really hard on these questions, all right? And I needed to lead off with a good one. And this is how I wrote it. Kim, how the hell do you juggle all of that?
Well, I get asked that a lot, in business, as a mom. And one thing that I always say is that ultimately every day I wake up and I embrace the chaos, right? I know that you have to have a good game plan, right? Always, in order to try to succeed and do your best. But I'm always ready for everything to fall apart. And when it does, and when it starts to unravel, I'm just ready to embrace that chaos, because ultimately my goal every day is to control the chaos, but sometimes it doesn't happen. So, positivity, a good attitude, a can-do attitude, just like we tell our kids on the ice, is super important. And I would say that's my number one thing going in every day. And I understand that not everybody has a positive mindset mentality, which I'm blessed with, to be honest with you. That's how I wake up every day. I see the glass half full every day when I wake up. But I know that that's not natural for everybody, right? Some people wake up and they have a different outlook. But I would say the best thing that you can do every day is to attempt to put positivity in the world so it comes back to you.
Well, I think we need to get t-shirts made that say embrace the chaos, I'm a hockey parent, or something like that. I want to ask this question too, because I'll be upfront about this. I talk a lot about mental fitness and mental health on this channel. I don't always have the easiest time transitioning when chaos it presents itself, right? I have my plan at the beginning of each day. And just like you, things happen. So I'm wondering if there's anything, in addition to the positivity, which exudes out of you, that, you lean on when something goes left instead of going right. Is it a deep breath for you? Do you practice that normally? Or is it just, hey, it's the way it is and I got to move forward?
Well, since, your podcast is primarily about us being parents to hockey children, I think one of our biggest challenges in our household as parents is that some children lean more towards what, our persona, and we can identify with that. Right. And then sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes that's the ultimate challenge. And then, opposite of that, sometimes our child is so opposite of us, we can't understand them, and we just want them to, kind of go into our lane and do the things the way that we want them to, even though we know that as they grow to adulthood, like, they're going to be their own person, and we need to help them be the best for them, right? Because they need to go out into the world and then achieve things on their own. So I would say, and the hockey world is so great about this. Hockey family is the most incredible, best thing about putting our kids in this youth sport, is that I lean on other people. And Lee, you're one of those people. I know that I've called you, for small things, for large things. And, when you do that because you really need to, it can change everything for you. Sometimes it's a validation. Sometimes it's actual things that help you. Sometimes it's a tip like, oh, I get my pre-made foods from this person and she delivers them, once a month. So it just depends on what it is. But I think that knowing, leaning on your hockey family for me is what gets me through it, because the schedules are always going to be, for me, overwhelming. So I've already scheduled this week when another teammate is going to give my son a ride, when we're going to give his son a ride, just so that all the magic can happen and everybody can get where they need to be.
It's tremendous advice, Kim. And I'll tell you that, one of the mistakes I think I made earlier, this is kind of like business and hockey I'm talking about, is I had this overwhelming, I have to do it myself kind of attitude. And you learn pretty quickly, if you want to succeed, that it's just not possible. You have to have a great support system. You have to surround yourself with people that are going to help you, like-minded people. Another one you brought up too, it was funny, is you talked about the pre-made meals. I had this stubbornness about this for the longest time about, no, we have to make our own food. And it's like, no, that was not a hill I was willing to die on. And it turned out to be one of the best things ever, was just to get some support, right? It was lack of a better word, it was worth the investment of time and money to get that back with my family. So exploring those things, kind of, as you said, and as you kind of mentioned, it's different for every family, right? Depending on location and what you do. Next one I want to dive into, and then Mike, I'll let you talk. I'm just excited about this one.
I'm here to learn because
yeah.
I have a complete chaos in my life every day. So I'm
there
good.
you go. Well, embrace the chaos, right? That's the theme of today's show. Kim, again, we mentioned you have 5 Nothing Bundt Cakes locations, but you're not new to business. You and your husband ran a business successfully together for many years. So weaving that in, kind of knowing that you've been in the professional world for a while, when the kids did get into hockey, all right, when it started, did you know what you were getting into, or was this kind of new for you? And I want you to keep in mind the parents listening that have just started their journey.
So no, absolutely not. I was naive to the hockey world. Had I been more versed, I probably would have, directed them to anything else. But no, absolutely not. My kids at the time played t-ball and soccer, and they just weren't into it. So Aiden, my oldest son, who was 6 at the time, said, "Mom, some kids at my school play ice hockey. I think I want to check it out." So naively, I said, "Okay, let me talk to their moms." And, their moms gave me, they told me the truth. They were like, "Oh, hockey's so great. We love it. You meet so many friends." But they did not tell me the real deal. It's up at 5 a.m. It's going to suck all of your weekend time away. It's a money pit. They did not tell me any of those other things. I am glad today that they didn't. But, you're talking to a Texas girl who was born and raised in Texas. I think we got the Dallas Stars, when I was probably in middle school or maybe early high school. We were a football family. And then I've lived here for 15 years. So I did not know anything about hockey. I feel like I got partial advice when I asked. And, but of course, as soon as we signed up the kids, and they immediately fell in love with it, and we've been here ever since.
Yeah, it's like that advice. How was hockey? It's great. It's really great. You should try it. No,
I've driven by your house. You have 8 feet of grass, so I don't know if but no, but I think that's a cautionary tale, right? It's almost like we say it from the hockey perspective. I mean, that's always the biggest selling point. Is like, just get them into the rink and get them on the ice, and you got them hooked. Like that's the I guess the negative piece of the positive side of what we do from a grow the game perspective. Get them out there, playing, they're hooked. Like the ability to get a kid onto the ice is the hardest piece. The keeping them there is actually fairly simple. If you can give them the access. Not up to us. Well, that's it. I mean, it's just the kids just like it's just one of those sports where, in a world that we're living in, like t-ball becomes very boring to them. I mean, I obviously, like a lot of people, I try to, inject into these other sports because, I want them to succeed too, because I do want to be out on a baseball field watching my kids play and not always in a rink, 12 months a year. But I think that's the struggle for me, is like, you've got to get out of this mode of 9 kids standing around waiting for a ball to get hit to them. And that's why hockey has really, elevated itself, because there is so much action. There's so much, opportunity to build in success for these young players, especially when your kids started, right, Kim, with the little 6, 7, and 8-year-olds. The way the game has evolved has given these kids the opportunity to play all the time, touch pucks, be active, leave with a good sweat on, and and have a little bit of success, as opposed to, I mean, t-ball is hard. I mean, hitting a ball is, they say, the hardest thing to do in sports, right? So I think that piece is a great piece for you and your family. But again, like you said, it's like, well, nobody told me about all this other stuff on the background. But again, that's why we lean on people like you. Like, that's why, Christy would interview somebody like you, because like we want to find the secret sauce to, okay, well, how do we manage all that? And it is a hard thing to do. whether your kid's in any sport. And I don't want to put hockey into a corner here, because any parent that has their child playing a competitive sport. I mean, I just met, 2 gymnasts this weekend that haven't been home in 3 weeks. So, it's just, they're out and about, and they have to go, they have to go away to meets, and they have to go to different states. I mean, you're fairly lucky at the youngest ages in hockey that you could stay within your, if you choose to, you can stay within your bubble. I mean, you can go bonkers, but you can control that chaos, I think, in a lot of ways.
We're going to go over her schedule in a moment.
Yeah.
Just to give you the idea.
I'm reading Lee's rundown. I'm like, geez, I'm tired just reading the rundown. I said, I don't even understand how this even is possible. But no, it's like, but again, to the point of, it is a scary thing to get into, but we do what we can for our kids. And as long as those kids are driving that, I think it's, then we'll make our schedules work.
Mike, I think that you hit on some key points, which is to just get kids onto the ice. It's just a great business format, to be honest with you. In Nothing Bundt Cakes, we say all we have to do is get cake in mouth. And once we do that, they drive themselves to the bakeries, right? And if you have a great product, if you have a great, program, then people will come back for it. And you're right in terms of the t-ball kind of and the soccer lines. That was why my boys struggled. And I just posted recently on social, I think, Lee, you might have seen it. It was a picture of my twins when they were probably first or second year Adams or mites or something like that. And everybody was in the handshake line. And my 2 twins, probably 5 or 6 years old, were wrestling on the side of the ice. And I just felt like that was them. They just had this hockey has a physicality to it that is constant. They have to be in control of their bodies to just stand upright, to move forward in the line, and that's not even any, adding any hockey skills in. And that is why hockey was a win for me as a mom. And that's why I kept going despite the time it took, all of the gear that I was confused by, acquiring the gear, purchasing it, all of it, because it had that piece of it that kept them constantly active that no other sport was able to offer at that time. And that was a huge win for me, for them on the ice, and then for me after they got off the ice, because they were truly engaged the whole time. They were tired. And then now as they've grown into middle schoolers and high schoolers, they are learning such life lessons that goes beyond that physicality about being committed to, a training program or to your team, whether, it's a successful season or not, whether they are a complete match for their coach or not, or for all of their teammates or whatever it happens to be. So, as a mom, those are the main things that make hockey a winning sport for us as a family.
Yeah, and I'll say too that, I think about, I'm at that point in my life where I'm starting to see things through my own parents' eyes, right? I don't know how to say that plurally, but I remember for me specifically, the relief on my mother and my father when I found the game, because it fit my personality. And look, I love baseball and football. I even enjoy basketball, but they never fit my temperament. When I found the game, it was such a clicking moment. I remember like, oh, this is it for me. But I could just never stand in center field and wait. That was never my shtick, if you know what I mean.
Well, as and Lee, you have, Logan and Alina, so you understand that their personas are not the same. Their mentalities aren't the same. Their limits for things aren't the same. The way that they process information will never be the same. But the beauty of this sport is it truly can be a fit for everybody. My oldest is your typical oldest type A. My twins are so gregarious, and so they're there for the social aspect of it, but they're all equally motivated, because the sport is it can be so inclusive, and it can reach kids in so many different ways to get them to come back and to be motivated to wake up early and to continue to show up with these ridiculous schedules that are 6 months long.
Oh yeah, and go ahead, Mike. Go ahead. My bad.
No, I just want, because it's just I don't take notes like Lee, so I'm trying to go off the piece here.
I'm going to take a note on that.
I don't take notes. So don't tell my wife. So the piece there, you made a great point, and I think this is something I really harp on all the time, is like you have a AAA child, and then you have let's say a AA child, but I'm imagining
two AA child,
two AA child, double trouble there. And I'm not saying it's not like but it is a big drop off in like the I guess the intensity of it, and you mentioned fun, and I think that's the piece we start to miss, and you're in the world of all these different people. all these different levels, having that ability to know where that fun scale is compared to the competitive scale. And I think that's a great point you made, is that the vast majority of our kids just want the social piece of this. They want I don't know if they want the structure, but they want the social piece. They want hey, I had fun. We won some, we lost some, we learned to lose, we learned to win. We learned that this coach is not great, and we learned that this coach is like the best person in the world. Like that's the kind of stuff I think we lose sight of sometimes when we forget that, hockey is for everyone, but hockey it is for kids. It's for these children to enjoy this time in their life, and not, it doesn't always have to have an end game of, well, they're playing because they want to get to the quote unquote next level.
Right.
I just want my kids playing, so they're playing this winter, and they want to come back and play again. I mean, because it like to your point, it's taking time in their day that's positive. Hopefully they step on the ice, and that 60 minutes is a positive experience. But I think a lot of us lose sight of the fact that that's really what the core of the game is. And in certain families, the one elite child, AAA kid, is still the same kid. They're still they have just as much fun going to the rink. They have just as much energy. They're just not at that level, or whatever that level might be at that time. But it's a great point, because I think a lot of us have multiple children, especially when you're in hockey, right? You're like, oh, let's hope that all our kids play hockey, because if they're not, if I got 4 kids and they're playing 4 different sports, then you're really in a whole another world. But I think it's like, knowing that you can have all those kids playing under one umbrella, and hopefully, well, it doesn't sound like you did a great job of hand-me-down equipment, because you got a goalie and then you got players, but
2 goalies, 2 skaters. Yeah.
yeah. So okay. So you're getting to move it around a little bit then, at least as far as, reusing equipment, I guess.
So that's my youngest skater, cannot get any of the stick hand-me-downs. He shoots the other way.
Oh, poor planning.
That's a nice investment. Kim, you were going to say something. Sorry, go for it.
No, I was just saying that, it really, what I have found in seeing my oldest and then my middles at those 2 different levels of play is, despite the AAA level being more intense and having a tougher schedule and, more training and pressure, what I found is, equally, because that's my oldest son's mentality, he finds a lot of joy in that, just as much as my AA players find joy with their group. It's just because they found their people, and they found their people who love the game, kids that are their same age, who share that love, and they love it in the same way. And that has been really eye-opening for me, I would say, because to see my oldest son be excited to do a gym workout in addition to the ice time, he's around people who take it as seriously as he does, who want to commit to it as much as he does, who are considering their what food they're eating and what drinks they're drinking or not drinking in the same way that he does. And for him, it feels so great. You can just tell that he's excited to be around them, because nobody is going to judge him for taking it so seriously, or say, oh, you're too serious about it. And he has found a new he's able to be his authentic self with them all the time.
Yeah, I love it you brought that up, because it's so true that the gauge on fun for kids, this is an important point, right? It's different for each kid. And parents have to remember that their gauge, like your gauge as a parent, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be your kid's gauge, right? One of the best pieces of advice I ever got when my kids were younger was someone told me, you have to remember they're not you, right? A lot of people like to say, oh, you get that from me, you get that from your mom, you get this from this person. And obviously there are traits that are inherited, but that's a separate whole person right there. They're them, right? And they're going to develop into themselves. They're not you or your wife or whatever. They're themselves, right?
And it gets really confusing for you.
Would you say?
Add twins into that whole equation.
I bet.
Even more complicated.
Right.
And I struggle with that the most, because I'm just like, you can't be your own person. Just do what you do what I need you to do, so make my life easier. So I don't understand why you're going off on these other tangents.
Kim's t-shirt is "Embrace the Chaos." Mike's t-shirt is "Just do what I'm asking you to do."
Just, just stay in your lane. Stay in your lane, kid.
Know your role. No, but it's true, Kim. I remember when I was playing, I as I matured and got older, I understood this more. I loved the hard work. I mean, I loved it, and I'm telling you, I left the rink, I left the gym, I left sometimes in pain, but I loved the game. I loved that, right? And I was always confused growing up of other kids, and this is my mistake, my fault. I couldn't understand how other people didn't act like that, right? It wasn't until I got older that it was like, that's not for everybody. Some people just want to skate and have a good time. And that's okay too, right? It took me far too long to kind of understand that. And also that can change over time, right? Like we see this all the time in mite. The kid who's lazy in mite might be your hardest worker in 10 years. You just don't know, right? And vice versa, So it's an interesting concept in terms of parenting and kids. Now, listen, I want to dive into your schedule. And I want to remind people a few things here before I get into this, because Kim shared this with us. It's as crazy as you think, but I have to remind the audience, she is a business owner on top of this with 5 Nothing But Cake locations. By the way, we don't do mid-rolls on this, and Kim's not paying us, but if you've never been to a Nothing But Cakes, you need to go, all right? You need to have one of those. If you pass it, stop by, even get one of what are the little small ones called? What do you call those?
It's called a buntlet.
A buntlet. I mean, it's a genius name. If you've never done that, do that. I got to reiterate, this is not an advertisement. This is just me helping all of you listening that if you've never had one of those, you're missing out. Okay.
Additionally, I just want to share, since we're taking this little moment, that Nothing Bundt Cakes loves to create fundraisers for all of your teams. So if you need anybody, we are happy to help you.
You see that we're providing even more value to the audience now. So check them out. You will not regret that. Okay. So again, she's a business owner, 5 locations. She is active in her community. She has 4 children, 2 whom are goalies. That's how we're walking into this segment here. Okay. So I'm going to go over the schedule and Kim, if I miss anything or I mistake anything, let me know. This is how the schedule looks. On Monday, the Twins have practice. That's at one rink. That's the slow day. On Tuesday, 6 a.m. goalie training. What was that?
Today, that Monday now also includes an off ice before the ice time, which was not. This is brand new this week. That will be for the remainder of the season. So it is a slow day. You're correct.
All right. Monday, Twins have practice and off ice. Or is it? There's an off ice. Okay. So that's one. Tuesday, 6 a.m. goalie training. You heard that right. Then Aiden has practice. Then Charlie has practice. I'm not mistaken. That's 3 different locations, correct?
3 different locations, correct. And all 3 of my 2 goalies and my defenseman go to that early morning training time. My defenseman uses the time as a shooter to improve for himself as well.
There you go. And just none of them can drive yet, right?
Correct. Oh, I am like counting down, Lee. The oldest is 14, and I am like, we're going to be at the door.
Yeah. Yeah. So just keep that in mind. Wednesday.
You think so, but I'm doing teen driving right now.
Yeah. Mike fears for his life every single day. Wednesday, 4 p.m. goalie training, and then Aiden has practice. That's 2 different locations, correct?
Yes. So we live in Springfield, Delaware County. That afternoon training is in Hatfield, Pennsylvania, and then his practice is in New Jersey.
Wow. Yes, that's a good point. We didn't even mention that. Thursday, 6 a.m. goalie training again. Charlie, the youngest, has practice. The Twins have practice. Everybody's practicing that day. And then there's school hockey practice. So that's 4 different practices. That's your busy day, I guess, of practice. Friday, Aiden's team has off ice and an on ice practice, again, a little bit slower. And then you get to the weekend where it's written here, games all over the place. So you're looking, unless you get lucky, at least 3 rinks. That's if you get lucky. Sometimes you have a game or 2 at the same rink in this location. But that's your week without your job, right? And it's now seems like the apt time to mention too that your husband is insanely involved, obviously, and I see him all the time as well. Another loving, caring parent who cares deeply for his children. But that is a sketch, Kim. That would be a full-time schedule without a job.
Agreed.
How you got to how do you coordinate this? I mean, you hinted at it earlier that you have people help you, but I mean, are you guys getting up at 4:30 every morning together and then going to bed at 4 a.m.?
We're not all getting up at 4:30. Usually Will and I rotate. And that's how we plan it out. So number 1, we use a Google Calendar and everything is imported and shared. That way we can all see it. We do have all of our kids have TeamSnap on their phones, the older ones that have phones, so that they don't have to ask us, what time is my practice? What do I have? They are responsible for knowing and being part of, the planning and getting it done and being prepared.
Love that.
On the logistical side, because it just is so much. I mean, nobody's helping us in the mornings because I don't think we could find somebody to hire to do that. Even
everybody's got a price.
Yeah, exactly. But we're already paying for the goalie training, so I think that we're like at the limit on the budget for that.
Right.
We can't invest any more into that. But we do lean on we have somebody that helps us 3 days a week in the afternoon. So she may, and Lee, you have helped her potentially in the locker room or at the rink, to make sure that our youngest is on the ice and he has all the things on that he should have. So we do use hired help. And then, of course, we coordinate with all of our hockey family, and we never hesitate to reach out and ask. That's one of our first calls to make if we see that there's a conflict or something is going on. Because I think that one of the things that Will and I do very consciously, and this week is a good example, on Wednesday, we had games to a Philadelphia Union game for my youngest. He loves watching all pro sports, and it was over the summer, and the game got postponed. So it's postponed to Wednesday. And we're not gonna say, oh well, he has to miss out on that. That's a moment that we had planned to make a memory with him, and we're not going to change it. So Will is going to take him to that, which would leave me free. But additionally, through all my networking and things, I got tickets to see a preview for Cirque du Soleil for me and my twins, and I don't want them to have to miss that. So we have already coordinated with somebody from our hockey family to take our oldest. And so again, I think that we really rely on making choices that are going to help us manage our schedule, because what I never want hockey to do is subtract from our lives. Hockey has been such an amazing addition to our lives, while logistically it is a nightmare. It is worth every effort to do it, but I never want to miss out on other opportunities because of it. And I think that that's a trap that a lot of parents and families can find themselves in. So I don't want anybody to look at our crazy schedule and think that it means that we say no to other things. We do, of course, naturally that happens because you can only fit so much into your day, but you have to make the good choices. You have to, in your mind, know where your priority list is in terms of kind of a hierarchy of what you're saying yes to when things conflict, and make sure that, there is some balance. I won't say it's like a true balance, but where at night when you go to bed and, your heart feels good and you can put your head down and feel like, you know what, we made the right choice.
Yeah, and you must have obviously done your research to make sure that the teams that the kids are on don't have these crazy policies where if you miss a practice, you miss a month of games, or, there's no flexibility. And, because that's so important, because you're absolutely right. You have to have, us as coaches and administrators and people that run these youth hockey programs have to understand that you can't. And I used to do this when I was when I first got into coaching before I had kids. I'm like, oh, geez, there's ice at 7:00 tonight. Just throw an email out there. Hey guys, practice tonight at 7. And I got like 18 parents, like their heads exploding. Like, are you crazy? Like, how can you just add this to my schedule? And I never really thought about it from a parent's perspective. I'm like, no, don't you want to be at the rink? Like, why wouldn't you want to be at the rink? And then I'm like, oh, you have other kids? Oh, you have a job? Oh, you do other things outside of the rink? I think a lot of us forget, especially the young coaches, right? They think, oh yeah, I love going to tournaments every weekend, or I'll do this, or I can add in another practice schedule. But to your point, Kim, obviously the coordination of all that, but also picking and choosing where your kids play is so important, because you have to understand the parameters of what the consequences are to have a real life, and make sure that you can have a balanced life. Because honestly, it's not the most important thing sometimes to the people running the teams. Although we say it is, it's the most important piece to being a parent and to having kids. So I think it's really so important to hear that message that, you're not denying your family the opportunity to do these special things because of some rigid, you have a practice on Thursday night, so for the next 28 weeks on Thursdays, there is just nothing else that can happen. And I think that's so important for us as coaches and administrators to remember too, that you need to build in not only the schedule for that, but also build in the communication if that's allowed. Because most parents if you don't communicate it, they're like, oh my God, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Like if I miss practice, is this going to affect my kid? And how's that going to trickle down? And what are the other parents going to say? So I think it's so important for everybody to kind of communicate within that organization that this is okay. It's not, you can't just miss 15 weeks of Thursday nights. Don't take Taekwondo every Thursday and miss my Thursday hockey practice. But there are ways to schedule around that, and we encourage that. So I think that's great that you're able to find those organizations. I hope that will do that for you.
Yeah, I think that you're right, Mike. I think that as parents, we do. And, the thing I think that is most different about hockey, and again, I'm not an expert in the other sports as a parent, but, we're so diehard about this. We live, eat, and breathe it. We dedicate so much of our life to it. And, we're all in. So I do think that as parents who, your child is not responsible for driving themselves or for what time they get anywhere, we do feel a burden and a responsibility. And we do have concerns because we're investing so much time and money and effort into it that it could adversely, affect them if we miss anything. And I do think that, to your point, good communication, clear communication, and almost celebrating people when they're having things that are important, confirmations, first communions, whatever it happens to be in their life. Because I think it really, saying to a group and to your team at the onset of the year, hey, if you have a conflict, just communicate it. Let us know. We want you to be able to, not don't come to practice if you are having, an important family function. But I think, going even a step beyond and celebrating that gives the rest of us who are not having that, time away from the team, the permission for when it's our turn to feel better about doing it.
I just want to add one more thing, because this just literally happened to me last week as a coach being asked about, so I'm the assistant coach on this team. So I'm not a great assistant coach. I'll be very honest, but I like the fact that I don't have to be like, people actually come to me. Like before, nobody ever came to me ever. Like, oh my God, like this guy's a lunatic. But now I'm kind of like the easy guy. I can be in the rank and the parent can say, what do you think coach thinks about this? And so one of the parents like, hey, listen, we might have opportunity for tickets to a game on Tuesday. We have practice on Tuesday. What do you think? They want to go to an NHL game. And my only advice is, listen, it's a long season. You really got to pick and choose when you want to miss those dates. It's just like school, right? If you miss 13 Fridays to go to hockey tournaments, it will affect you. If you miss 2 and you communicated that and planned it out, and you pick and choose when you're going to miss, that becomes so much less stressful for everyone involved. And so if you're going to go to a hockey game, but you're going to 16 of them, maybe don't miss this practice, because this is a really important practice for you because of where your kid is, like kind of in the pecking order right now. Now, later on, maybe you plan it out and you pick and choose, like, oh, we only have one game next Saturday. This Tuesday might be the good day to miss practice. But that takes planning. We talk about it all the time, right, Lee? It takes communication. It takes, you can't just live your life waking up in the morning and say, oh, okay, my 7 kids have practice, and what do I do? So I think it's just, but I think also as coaches need to do that too. Like, okay, I have 18 families responsible for me. I can't just tell them on Monday what we're doing Wednesday. And I think that's, all those pieces really come into play, especially in hockey or any sport, any competitive sport. That scheduling really becomes so important, because things can't just, pop up. Like I used to joke all the time. Like if my wife doesn't see it on the calendar, it doesn't exist. Like you cannot do it because it doesn't exist. Like that has nothing to do with me. You figure it out. So I think it's so important for us to see that. And me, like I have no responsibility for anything. Like, oh, they have dentist appointments at 4:00 in the afternoon. They can't go to that, special hockey event. No, they have a dentist appointment that's been scheduled for 2 months. Like, so I think it's all of us as hockey people have to understand that scheduling, that communication is so important. But you do it when you can, but don't take advantage of it. Pick and choose, when you're going to have those special days for the kids.
If it is that when we start to be concerned more for our kids' ice time or their play time, they're also at an age where they're old enough to start to communicate for themselves. Right. So I think that that's the other important piece in our household is if we're having to miss anything, whether it's elective or, because there's a conflict, we are having conversations in our house with our boys that are 12 and older saying, hey, what choice do we want to make? Why will we make these choices? So that they can begin to process, those decision-making skills, and because we're making the choice as a family. And then we do help them to reach out to their coach. We might be with them when they're having a conversation, or we might help them create the team snap message to reach out to them and begin that communication. And for my 14-year-old, he does it very easily on his own now. And we don't even have to, we just make sure that he does it. And he has a great relationship with his coach. So I think as long as the coaches are understanding that not only are they a coach on the ice, but what I love about the best coaches that we've had are that I'm doing my part as a parent at home to have these communications, to create this communication skill set. But then when they're supporting it by acknowledging and saying to my 12-year-old, hey, this is really great. I'm so glad that you reached out to me. You did a good job in, being clear, or, hey, if next time when you reach out to me, this is what I would like to see, and giving him those parameters. But mostly it's just that positivity, because it's letting them know this is a good thing, and it just encourages them more to do it, at any other point in time that they need to. And that's a life skill set. And that's what, of course, all of us say in hockey. That's why we're really here, because they're building life skills. And this is one of the ways that I have found it really valuable for my kids.
So, Kim, I'll say this. I'm going to page of notes now, but I got to comment on a few of these things. One is that you just reminded me as a coach something, that as a coach, it's easy for us to forget sometimes that how hard it is for a young child to come to us. And I want all the parents listening to know that I'm talking about the kids, not the parent. I love it when a player comes to me and talks to me about their goals or what they want. Even if they're nervous, the fact that they can come talk to me, to me as a coach, that's a huge win, that they can feel comfortable. But again, easy to forget that, as an adult, it's hard for a 10-year-old or a 15-year-old sometimes to approach you, because you're the coach, you're the adult. There is a slight intimidation factor there. You have control over this person's ice time. So just to echo Kim, to the parents listening, and I don't think there's ever a time that you're too young to be realistic about this. I think even in mite, I want the kids to be able to feel comfortable talking to me. Encourage your child in the right way. I got to say it like that, to talk to the coach. That might mean calling or texting or whatever and saying, hey, can I meet with you before the next practice? You're going to learn a lot about your coach if they say no to that, by the way. All right. And just so you know, I've never had a coach, actually only one time. I've only one time had a coach say no to that. All right. They weren't a very good coach. But my point is, I want to hear from the kids. The other thing, Kim, I got to bring this up, and I talk about this a lot on my other channels. You'll notice in your intro, I never used the phrase work-life balance. And there's a reason why, because I don't think work-life balance is a thing. I think we all say that. I think it's fairy dust. It doesn't exist. I do believe in priority balance. And to me, you are someone that if there was a Mount Rushmore of people with priority balance, your family would be on it. Because as you've said, we know exactly where our priorities lie. Our family comes first. 2, hockey is not number 2, right? Growing up and experiences and ROI on hockey being life skills. That's the next thing. And then it's also, we're well-rounded. I love that you said Cirque du Soleil. It's funny, Mike, we don't talk about this enough on the show. We talk about making well-rounded athletes and how you should do other sports, but we don't ever talk about the other extracurricular things like music, and acting and the arts, right? And how important it is. I care about it, Mike. I care about it. No, honestly,
wait. I just got to say something, because my family.
I can't wait for this, Mike.
I just got to say this. My family listens to this to rib me all the time, right? About my speaking. But my whole family's artists and musicians. And I'm literally the only one that can't draw a stick figure. So, I have artists, musicians, I have actresses. My whole family's in the arts. So, and again, my best athletes have always been the lead in the school play, right, model UN president, debate club winner. Like, that's the best people that I recruit when I go after players, are the best people. They're the most well-rounded. They're not a hockey player ready to explode when they blow their knee out at 11th grade and can no longer play the game again. So I just wanted to preface that, because it'll get cut the wrong way on my side.
I appreciate you saying that. Actually, you're making my point and Kim's point here. And I'm going to say this too, because a lot of times people, how does that help with hockey? Which is not the right mentality at all, but it does, because you're learning how to be creative, and your ability to apply creativity to the game, especially at the higher levels, is really important. I was just listening to John Tortorella do a press conference, head coach of the Flyers, jokes aside, and he was talking about his elite level defenseman and how what he wants to see is creativity within the constraints of the system. And that's what separates a guy who plays every night from a guy who doesn't. So just being a formulaic player that does exactly what you're supposed to do, while I'm not knocking that, that's not the full picture, right? You want to allow, I say this as a coach all the time, I want you to be creative within the space you're given, because that's what makes a great player. And again, so Kim, just bringing it back, this is the point I wanted to say. I love that you have that priority balance. I love that you exposed your children to things other than just hockey. We didn't even get into just the business aspect of your life, which I'm sure they're very, very much attuned to, or they're around all the time, right? So for the parents listening, and Kim, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. It's all about priority balance. You really need to decide, and this can change year to year, like, what are the priorities in the household? All right, because that's how you start to divide the time in your mind, right? It's not work-life balance. You're never going to succeed with work-life balance. You're just going to feel horrible all the time. Kim, you're the master at this. Please, any comments you have on that?
Well, I always say my kids love hockey, right? They always want hockey to be their focus. And I think that's amazing. And I love that. And that's why we spend so much time in the sport. But, when there's this, what I call a unicorn of an off season, because I don't really think there is one.
You have a day here or there. Yeah.
Try to, they have played lacrosse and other more scheduled sports, I would say, or seasonal sports that has sometimes worked for us and sometimes not. However, we try to participate in what we call lifetime sports, which means, so Taekwondo is one of them, golf is one of them, surfing is one of them. We do things that allow tennis, racquetball, pickleball, all these things where we can dictate the schedule on them, or we can do them, for 3 weeks and then not do them again and then come back to it a month later. Because I do believe that all that hand-eye coordination and all of these and just being around other people and other athletes, right. If you're a great hockey player, you're a great athlete.
Right.
So having, input and experience and time in other spaces and places only builds, if hockey is your focus. And if it doesn't end up being your focus, then you have these other experiences to decide where you want to change your focus and how you might want to maneuver from something. Because when you live a life in hockey that is so all-encompassing, and then you step away from it for whatever reason that is, whether it's injury, whether it's a choice, whether because of something negative or that happened, or just because of whatever it is, finance, you move, I don't know. I want my kids to be able to maneuver and know maybe where they have other interests or talents. And music is one of them too. All of my boys play the ukulele very well. And they've played other instruments as well. But again, it's because they can pick up a ukulele and they can take it with us on, a road trip or to a tournament, and they can have it with them. So we're purposefully choosing things that we can acclimate into our life with the most ease as possible.
I want to be with your team. I want to be with your team on a weekend up at a hotel with the ukulele out in the lobby. That's what I want to do. Jeez, that's pretty cool. I mean, and that's my point too, right? We had a player, I think, a couple of years back, and one of my high school kids played the electric guitar, and he played the Star Spangled Banner, to start in his hockey equipment on the ice, like plugged into the speaker.
That's awesome.
And it was
Please tell me there's video of that somewhere.
There's somewhere. I don't know. Somebody has it. This is, I shouldn't say a couple of years ago. This is, back in my other life. But I think it's like, it's just, but those are the kind of things, like, I love to embrace those things. Like, I just did a survey for a new program I'm working with, and that's the whole survey. I don't think I even mentioned about hockey. Like, I just want to know, what are your interests? What do you like? Are you a dog person? Are you a cat person? Are you like, do you play other, what other sports do you play? Is it your primary sport? Is it your secondary sport? What other, do you love art? Do you love music? Because this is the kind of stuff that helps us, even in Lee's world of team building. Like, you're always going to have that best player, right? But if you want to have the best team, other kids on the team have to feel valued. So if you can extract what they're great at and build it into your team dynamic, all of a sudden that kid is looked at differently. Like they don't have to just be a great goal scorer or a great defender or a great goalie. They could be great at something else that we do in a different team building activity. And it just elevates them in the mind of the kids. They're like, oh my God, this guy's unbelievable at this. Like, I didn't even know we had this talent. And because talent is talent, right? So I think it's just so important to know your players, and to what you're doing, Kim, and your family is, allowing your athletes to be people and to explore all these great other things. And I love that idea of, like, again, it is hard to play. We joke around with the USA hockey model that we want our kids to be multi-sport athletes, but yet we put the hockey programs into a position where you can't be a multi-sport athlete. I mean, we have tryouts in April, we start seasons in August. Like it's not conducive to be a 3-season athlete the way we've designed the sport. But tennis, golf, badminton, archery, whatever it is, do those other things. And if you can schedule it around your crazy schedule and make it a part of their daily thing that they do for life sport, I think that's so important. And that's great, because I think it's just, at the end of the day, it does make a better athlete. It does make a better hockey player. But, and Lee says this all the time, it just makes a better person. And, this gives you opportunity to be a different person.
As a business owner, I do a lot of networking and I talk to a lot of people, and I'm lucky I have an amazing product that I am able to provide. But what I always say is, you can go to a lot of places to get cake for your birthday, to celebrate somebody at the office, to, for corporate gifting. But when I meet people, and the reason I tell my boys that you want to learn other things and kind of have an interest in other things, so that when you talk to people, you can connect with them. Because, right, you might be all about hockey, but maybe that's that teammate and you're not like, totally in sync, but maybe you learn that you like the same music, or maybe you like you said, you're both into archery or whatever it is. Now you've made a connection. And I try to share with them that in the business world, when I network, I'm just trying to meet people and learn about them, and for them to learn about me. The cake is secondary, because now if they say, oh, she's a hockey mom, or she's a sport parent, or she's a boy mom, now they're going to say, wait, what does she do? And maybe I want to work with her, right? Because now we've connected on a personal level. And that's the other piece that I think is really important to doing other things, because hockey, we're so intense about it. And, it gets competitive no matter what level you're at. It allows the boys and girls to have a different connection that's separate from the hockey, because at some point they will conflict.
I was going to say, Kim, this might have been one of the first times you were introduced as a hockey parent first, and then an award-winning business owner because of that. But you're making a great point. And, there's a cautionary tale here, because I have played with and met, when I was younger, players who only did hockey. I mean, it was their life. And I'm going to tell you, this isn't a shot at them, but they could not carry a conversation about anything other than the game. And it could become frustrating at times for them and for the people around us, because they had no other interest. And then the cautionary side of it is the game ends for all of us at some point. And it would terrify me that if I was, whether it was 18 or 40, and I couldn't talk about anything else. I mean, we can't do that to our kids. You have to open them up to other experiences and things like that. Another thing I love about talking to Kim is that, anyone listening to this can't just go, well, yeah, I mean, it's easy for her. No, she's got 4 kids in a business. This is like a no excuses episode for everyone, including me. One thing I wanted to touch back on was earlier in the episode, you had said that the kids are somewhat responsible for their schedule on the digital calendar. So here's a parent question. This is actually me asking you, even though we're on the air. How do you handle mistakes, right? How do you handle, hey, the elbow pad, the glove didn't make it in the bag? How do you handle, I misread the calendar? I mean, it's got to happen, right? That's something, again, I'm in the first season now where both the kids are playing, right? Last year and the year before, it was really just one, within reason, right? So how do you handle mistakes or mishaps or hiccups?
You text your husband and say, see? I just, that's my own.
This was your responsibility.
I've never had that happen to me.
Never, I'm sure. One thing that I always say, and if my bakery teams ever hear this, they're going to say, there she goes. I always say mistakes are great because they're a place where we can have the most growth, right? We can be, if we're successful every day, that's wonderful. But in order to have true growth, we have to make the mistakes. And mistakes are where the learning happens. And all I can ask is that we don't repeat them. So as you know, I think that at work, actually, it's a lot easier for me than at home, because home is like, it's emotional and they're my kids. So I don't always have the HR hat on, when the frustration bubbles up and all those things.
The HR hat. I like that. I understand that. I get that.
And it's really interesting. In addition to some of the other things that you shared about me, I also do some writing for some local publications. And the article that I'm currently working on is called From Manager to Momager. And I'm really writing about how, as I've developed as a professional, and I've had to develop a lot of these HR skills and management skills in order to understand people, understand myself, etc., in order to set them up for success, I'm now translating a lot of that to my household. Now that my boys are of an age where I feel like they need to be more responsible and the burden needs to be more with them and grow more with them than with me, especially regarding school, hockey, and everyday preparation in our household. So you're right, mistakes happen. I mean, that's just the nature of having a crazy logistical schedule. I think that the best thing that we can do for our kids is set them up for success. So, mistakes are going to happen, but just like at work, I can't, give somebody a warning if I haven't given them the opportunity to truly succeed. So, and I'm going to really break it down for you. And it's funny that you asked that, because like I said, I'm writing this article, so I really had to put pen to paper on it, literally. And it's all about, how am I communicating it? Is it verbal? Is it written? Is it via TeamSnap? And how does my child need to hear it? Are they audio? Are they visual? Are they tactile learners? And making sure that I am giving them whatever they need. So TeamSnap is one of them. We use a lot of lists. So, and again, you can imagine that I create a list, I laminate it, and then we use an expo marker. So for example, if we're going to go on a tournament trip, I have a list, it's printed out, and it says trip planning, and it says there's a blank, and it says shorts and blank and pants. And then I put the expo marker how many they might need, and I give it to them, the Thursday before we leave, and I say, go get your duffel bag and fill it up with these items, and we check it before they leave. So again, I'm still making sure that, they didn't bring shorts instead of pants when we're going to Michigan, but, and that they brought, two, no holes in their socks, etc.
Right.
But they're doing kind of the heavy lifting piece, right? They're saying, well, this is a sweater that's my favorite. Or then it might give them the opportunity to ask me, hey, Mom, where's my favorite sweater? I need to have it washed then. But it's giving them those steps to get there, because otherwise we're just saying, go pack your bag.
Right.
That's the equivalent of a coach on the ice saying, skate harder.
Right.
Right.
Right. But it's so simple, Kim. Why don't
the result that you wanted by giving that direction? Right.
No, it's a great point. It's a 5-star answer, by the way. I'll tell you, it's funny you bring this up too, Kim, because I was just giving a friend of mine who has younger kids advice, and I said to him that your younger kids can do more than you think they can. Just sometimes for us as parents, it's just easier to do it. But I said that just know that they can probably do more. They can feed the dog. They can take their dishes to the sink. It's funny you mentioned that, because that conversation reminded me with my son and my daughter. We were having some, I'll just say, inconsistencies with getting the bags packed. And I was getting very frustrated. And what I've learned to do, and this is actually just following what you said, is that when I get frustrated, I actually look at myself and say, well, okay, what am I not doing? It's not always me, but what am I not doing communication-wise that they're not receiving the information? And you made a very important point. We always talk about 10 out of 10 problems are communication-based, but people receive and retain information in different ways. I've said it before. If I see something visually, like I'll give as a hockey example, if you show me a drill, I will be able to do it almost immediately. If you just tell it to me with nothing on a board, I have a very hard time with that. It just, whatever reason, I've tried. So one of the things I did was I had Logan with me, my son, who has 2 bags now. He has a player bag and he has a goalie bag. So you can imagine it can get, sometimes the gear has to go back and forth. Yeah, we'll talk about goalie stuff in a minute. And one of the funny things is I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make a checklist just like you did. But I said, Logan, you're going to create it. And I'm going to help you make it. So I put the accountability on him of, okay, and I helped him. What are the pieces of equipment you need for this, for that? And, he actually enjoyed it, which I was kind of half mad, half happy about, because, it's like, I've been telling you to do this for months. But he made the list. He put the list up, and now he has the accountability of doing it. And I can say to him, you made a list. You made that list, not me. Right. So I think that like little tips like that are really important. Not the one I just gave, but all of the ones you said of we find different ways. Another quick one was, for whatever reason, this is a parent, husband, wife thing. For whatever reason, the digital calendar that I've created and spent a lot of time on just wasn't clicking in our house. Right. I was getting very upset about it. But then again, I did it as a husband. I turned around and I said, all right, what can I do differently? Because this, again, for those listening, my wife has an insanely busy job to the point that checking her phone to check a calendar really is not always the easiest thing to do. So I went out to the Staples, and I was praying they still had those old paper calendars that you can write on. I'll share a picture of it in the group. And I wrote, it's basically just who's dropping the kids off at school, who's picking them up, and who has hockey that day. And it has been a dream for us. She checks it every day. It's worked. For whatever reason, it's worked.
Do you physically write it on there?
I physically write it. I will
give you my pro tip for that, because we also have a paper calendar.
Sure.
Pro tip is for repeating events. Avery makes labels. They're the return address labels, and they're 80 on a page.
That's a good idea.
So you just write Alina's practice, and you just do a full sheet, and then you just stick them on every Tuesday, Thursday.
But if I make it too easy, I can't complain that I have to do it and get those brownie points at the end of the day. No, that's actually a really good suggestion.
I got hand cramps from the schedule.
Color code the colors.
I did that. So I have it color coded between when one has practice, the other has practice. They both have practice. What's funny is that looking at it, we have big rectangles now over the days where there's no hockey. So we have like, wow, there's 5 days this month. That's like a record where we don't have to be anywhere. And naturally, we schedule other stuff for those days. But the point I'm making, Kim, and again, this is the what you've championed here, is that it would be easy for me to stomp around the house being like, I made this digital calendar. It wasn't working. And we had to find something that worked. Same thing with my kids. I told you to put the equipment together. It wasn't working. I had to find a way that they were going to receive it. That's part of the growth aspect of this, both as a parent and as a player and a child. And also, I mean, look, there's a million coaching examples of this, Mike, we could give. That's a whole nother episode. Right. Yeah. But I think it's important we bring this up because it's always changing every year. Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
No, I'm just trying to debate the paper versus the digital, but I think it all depends on the family and the kids, the ages of your kids. And, the fact that like to me, I'm aghast when I find out like a team doesn't have like a digital app. It's amazing. What? Like, how are you even living?
Even my adult league team has that, Mike.
Yeah, I know, everybody. I'm like, wait a minute. You don't have a scheduling app? I said, I mean, how do you live? I mean, yeah. So it's, again, and my wife's all paper. I'm all digital. Like, so yeah. It's like just trying to, I'm up there taking a photo of the calendar on the fridge because I've got to coordinate with her having that schedule. That's the way she works. But again, it's just a matter of, and I think that goes back to like the scheduling and coaches knowing that you can't just add things in at the last minute. And, it might seem like a bonus, like, oh, I've added this ice on Thursday nights and we're all, we love
managers too. This isn't just coaches. Managers need to hear this too.
Yeah. And then you're just like, oh my God, like, how am I going to do this? And then, to Kim, we were saying, right now your kids are stressed out. Like, oh, I can't miss practice. Well, we're away. Like we've already planned this day and so we got to work it out. But I think it's that piece is so vitally important for the health of your family, right. Because if you're lucky enough to have one child, I guess it's not that bad. But if you're in a place where you got to be in multiple places with multiple kids and multiple events, then that coordination of the daily activities is huge,
vital.
And it does. And again, I like the fact that it's not a balance. You're actually just managing. Right. And
yeah. And I think, to take it down to our youngest kids level, which, Charlie is 7. So he doesn't have Team Snap and he doesn't necessarily read a list, but, I try when we're there early I think the hardest thing that we do as parents, that's hard for us as parents is, like you said, Lee, is that they can actually do more than we give them credit for. So if you get there early, what you have to think about, and again, everything for me goes to the business mindset, which is, and I learned this when I grew from 1 to 2 to 3, now to 5 locations. What I did when I had 1 location and even 2 locations is not sustainable as an owner and for my bandwidth as I've grown to 5, and we're still growing. So now every decision I make is that sustainable when I have twice as many bakery locations? The same is true for our kids. So the earlier you can have your kids help you, the more sustainable it will be for your life if you have other kids that are coming into this sport or any other sport. And more importantly, it ensures the happiness that we all have at the beginning that we need to try, that's harder to keep as our kids get older and our schedules get busier and things get more competitive. So a good example is, just this past weekend, Charlie and I were probably the first ones at the rink for the 7 a.m. game. And it was dark and early, and we were in the locker room with plenty of time. And I said, you know what, Charlie? I want you tell me which gear goes on first, and then you try to put it on. And if you need help, I will help you. Because we were the only ones in the locker room. And again, not every day, there are days when you have the 4:30 practice and you're hustling from school and work. But the more you can do, the earlier you can do, you have to have a sustainability mindset, right? What is going to help you sustain your sanity, your schedule, your life, your happiness, and what burden can you translate to the kids so that they can, also have pride and be happy and excited that they're self-sufficient.
Right. And some of the trade-off too is, especially with the youngest child, I'll say, and I've realized this too, is you realize, this might be the last time you get to do certain things as a parent.
You've seen my husband at the rink.
I wasn't going to bring that up, but you can bring that up if you want. Your husband is a tall, hulking man who I never want to make upset. I'll put it that way. But yeah, no, it's funny because my daughter gets herself dressed outside tying her skates. And it's like you have a moment where it's like, oh man, I'm never going to do that again. But you got to, again, it's a balance, right? You got to decide certain things. You can always help them if you ask, right? But those are fun things with the last kid. Kim, listen, I'm looking at the time. I have several questions, but I'm going to skip over some of them. I realized early on in the episode, we could actually have you on a whole episode of Our Kids Play Goalie if we wanted to, which we're probably going to do because with 2 goaltenders in the house and the realization from me, as you watched me go into my goaltending parent chrysalis and come out the other end of that, because there's a whole denial phase with that. But there's 2 questions I really want to get to here that I think are important. This next one, I think, is going to speak to a lot of parents. You have a child in AAA, you have 2 children in AA, and you have a mite, a beginner player, okay? Different ages, different people, different kids. I want to know about the household mentality of those different levels, because I have seen it across the board where it's easy to go, well, that child's games are more important than this child's games, okay? And look, there are, I would say it as a coach, yeah, if the AAA player has a game and my mite child has a scrimmage, there is a priority there, okay? But I want to know, how do you handle this? Because each kid has to get equal love, equal time. And I think it's easy for parents to drop into this, well, one kid plays AAA, that's more important. And that's dangerous thinking. Can you just talk about how you compartmentalize that in your household?
We really don't even think about the level of play, to be honest with you. The only time that might ever come into, actually it doesn't, even if we're at the end of the season and, we're talking about, championship games or semifinals or anything like that, that doesn't come into play, right? Every kid is equally important. So we just rotate our time. I think as double goalie parents, the hardest part is you don't know who's going to play if they're not on an equal rotation. So you may go to to one goalie's game and not see him, and then go to the other's goalie game and not see him either. But that's part of the job as a goalie parent, just like it's part of their job to have that rotation. But, we never think about that. We're just equally sharing our time with the different kids, hoping that we get to see our goalie play. I mean, we do talk about that, like, oh, what do we think is going to happen and what was the rotation, and try to predict. But ultimately, everybody gets both my husband and I as equally and as much as possible. The only time that it may come into play is if any of our kids are struggling with something, and we feel that it would benefit them to have one of our personalities more than another, or pregame or on the ride or whatever it is, whether that's to help motivate them, whether that's just to put them at ease. Because again, sometimes we naturally vibe with one of our kids more than another. So in that sense, we may make that choice.
But it's not skill level based. I think it's important to reiterate that.
Correct.
Right.
And I would say the additional piece to that I think is really important is we give equal training time to all of our kids. So the extra money that we pay for goalie training goes as much to my AAA player. We give as much time to my other goalie, my AA goalie, because he's not less deserving of it just because he plays at a different level. The goal of training and of any season is, to start at one place, and then, this is your goal, and you're going to try to get as close to it as possible. And it doesn't matter if you're, a AA, a AAA, it doesn't matter what level you're at. And that's really important. Equally, we try to give our defensemen as much, training time as possible. And I really look at it on, I look at the calendar, I look at the budget, and I try to say, whatever we're doing for one, we have to try to do it for all of them. It's just a fair thing. And I would not feel good about doing anything other than that.
I love the answer. Look at you bringing sanity to this game right now with that answer. No, listen, Kim, it's a fantastic answer. And I think, it's important people remember that you got to throw the letters out, right? Because it's not what it's about, right? At the end of the day. Now, don't get me wrong. If a kid's got a chance to get drafted and they have a big tournament, yeah, you got to make a decision as a family of who is going to go with that. But at the same time, using my own experience, and Mike, I've told you this too, I'm volunteering to work with my daughter's team this year because I afforded that to my son for several years. And I want her to know you can have this too. Not just me, obviously. It's the same opportunities across the board. And look, there's been some drawbacks and benefits to that, but I don't want any kid of mine, really any kid in general, to feel like, there's preference here. I love my children equally. I mean, I couldn't take another 6 hours to talk about how much I love my kids. All of us share that. Kim, final question, because I'll keep you for 3 hours if you let me. The three of us on here, very blessed. We're all entrepreneurs in our own right. We get to kind of create our own schedule. It is a blessing. And there's never a day that I wake up and I don't have some gratitude for what I get to do, what you get to do. Mike, I know you're in a similar boat most days outside Monday morning. No, I'm just kidding. Every day, we love to do this. So my last question for you is this, and this is something people listening, I really look up to Kim with this. And as she said, she comes to me, I go to her for this all the time too. Any of the parents listening, your advice, if they want to take that step into entrepreneurship or a furthering of a career within the hockey lifestyle, because I think a lot of people go, I just can't do it. And I believe there is a way to do it. So I would just love to hear from you, your advice for parents or guardians listening that want to have a career outside of being a full-time hockey parent.
I think similar to when I asked the young moms at the time, what do you think about hockey? Should we do it? And they said, oh yeah, it's great. You should do it. I think I could easily say the same. Oh, it's great. I love it. It allows me to control my own schedule and be in control of my personal wealth, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. But additionally, I think very similarly to hockey, and that's why I love the sport so much. I feel like it has so many parallels to being an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship and business ownership is all encompassing. It takes everything you have every single day. There is no time out. So while yes, you get to control your own schedule, and there are a lot of benefits to that, particularly as a hockey parent, it means that I always have my laptop with me. And for my goalie who likes to be at the rink 2 hours ahead of time, I am spending those 2 hours, or at least an hour and a half, working. The benefit is that when we drive to Boston and to Chicago for, 10 hours, he gets to hear a lot of conference calls. And, I am utilizing all that time to gain time with him, but it means that I am always working. But for anybody who's willing to try it and is ready to do it, I think that entrepreneurship not only individually benefits us as people, because we're going to do something that we're passionate about, that we have a talent for, that we love, which ultimately will drive our business to success. But I think that just like hockey, my children, just from being exposed to living with two entrepreneurs, they have taken away so much about work ethic, commitment to staying on a plan, planning and the logistics, all effort, no excuses attitude, that I'm hoping is, going to be valuable for them for life. So for that reason, I think too, as parents, it can be beneficial in ways that that are non-business related, that you may not even be aware of.
Oh, just
fantastic. Hope that answers your question.
Oh, you answered it and then some. Again, you're just extremely well spoken. Mike, I'm going to throw it to you if you have any other final questions. I will say this real quick, Mike, that Kim, we're going to have you. I'm going to use producer powers here, and Caitlin will hopefully agree. We're going to get you back on Our Kids Play Goalie, because I've had several questions come up throughout the episode. I'm like, I'm just going to save that for another episode because it's goalie related. But no, this has been fantastic, Mike. But I wanted to give you a moment too, if you had any other questions.
No, it's awesome. It's like always when we do these, it's inspiring. It's it's an opportunity to kind of reevaluate what you're doing and reschedule your brain and say, wow, you know what? I never thought that I could do that, or maybe this is the time to do it, or let me get my kids to do this, and let me share this episode with those parents that I know are struggling and know that feel overwhelmed and feel like, oh my God, like, how are you? I think we sit in the rink and we're all in the lobby and nobody's willing to admit that we're all nuts and that, everything's crazy. And then when you see like somebody not there, like, well, how come this person's not here? How come this person's not at the game? They go, they can't come to everything. Like I don't remember my parents ever going to my games. Like my father did later on in my life, but he was working. I mean, he's like, never was at practice and never followed me around. So he's just like, okay, yeah, somebody's dropping you off, go to practice, get dressed.
Mike's at hockey. I said, where's Mike? He's at hockey.
He's at hockey. But I think that's the point, right? Is to help your children navigate as much as they can, so it helps you. But also, I think if you listen to this episode and you have an opportunity to share it with somebody that maybe is struggling to do all this stuff, you see them like always late and never on time and always forgetting equipment, and it's a hard sport to navigate. There's no doubt about it. And I think it's I think you had some great advice and some great insights as to what you do and secrets. And I'm sure you'll share the website and order some bundt cake. And
you have to try that if you haven't.
I'm not in the Philadelphia area, so I guess I'll have to do the mail.
They're everywhere. They're everywhere. But Mike, I'll tell you, when you do come to the Philadelphia area, I know where I'm taking you right away. But they're very addicting. So Kim, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to offer up our email real quick, team@ourkidsplayhockey.com. That if you have a question for Kim that you want to ask her, send us that email, and we will make sure it gets through. But Kim, I also want to give you a chance. Whether it's Nothing Bundt Cakes or something else, is there a way people can support you?
Well, of course. I mean, if you need anything, there are Nothing Bundt Cakes nationwide. There's 525 of us open nationwide and in Canada. So, all of us have, all of the owners that I know that I've met, which there have been many, have the same heart that I do. It's part of what's special about our brand and about the people that are in it. So anything that we can help you do to celebrate, we are here for you. Again, whatever we can do to help you otherwise, in-kind donation for a banquet or a fundraiser to help your team travel, whether it's hockey or, music or whatever it is that is important to you in your life. You need a raffle donation for a cause that's near and dear to your heart. We are happy to help with all of those things because we definitely feel like, just like the hockey community, the more that we can do for the community, then the stronger our community is.
And I will support that by saying that everybody has seen Dunkin' Donuts munchkins in the locker room. Kids like the munchkins, but when there was a Nothing Bundt Cakes box in that room, it was a different vibe. The kids slowly crept up to it. They understood that if I'm going to get one of these, I need to cooperate right now. It was an event. So yes, listen, we all love hockey. We all love cake. So this is a win-win episode.
Hey, hockey is for everybody. Cake is for everyone.
That's the other T-shirt we're going to make, and embrace the chaos. That's the theme of the episode. So this has been a very literal episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. Literally, we've been talking about that. Kim Wright, just a fantastic person. fantastic business person, fantastic hockey mom. I can't thank you enough for being here today.
Thanks so much for having me, and I'll see you at the rink.
I'll see you at the rink too. And Kim will return. We're gonna get her back on for an episode of Our Kids Play Goalie. Remember, all of the episodes of Our Kids Play Hockey are available wherever you listen to podcasts. We continue to break records every single month, actually weekly, with the amount of listeners we have. Cannot thank you all enough for that. Please, if you haven't done so already, share this episode with all of the hockey parents. This one's an inspiring one. It's going to make you feel great. Put it in your team snap, put it in your chats. If you do a written version, what's wrong with you? Just share the podcast with everybody you can. And remember, all the episodes always available on ourkidsplayhockey.com. For Mike Benelli, Kim Wright, I'm Lee Elias. We'll see you next week, everybody. Skate on. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Make sure to like and subscribe right now if you found value wherever you're listening, whether it's a podcast network, a social media network, or our website, ourkidsplayhockey.com. Also, make sure to check out our children's book, When Hockey Stops, at whenhockeystops.com. It's a book that helps children deal with adversity in the game and in life. We're very proud of it. But thanks so much for listening to this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, and we'll see you on the next episode.